All right. Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Game Dev Show. Today may be a solo show. I'm not sure. I think there may be some other people hopping in a little while, but there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of to talk about. So I figured we'll have some fun chat with everybody that's here live and just discuss the things that I thought were kind of interesting coming out of GDC. So if you weren't there last year or last week, not last year, which I assume most people weren't there, there was quite a bit shown. It was definitely a bigger event than last year. I don't know how big it was exactly, but it felt very, very packed and full with a lot going on. I didn't get to see everything on the show floor, unfortunately. There was a lot of stuff to see, but I did see quite a bit, and there was a lot of cool stuff to talk about and share. So if you're here with us live or here with me live, please say hello in chat. And if you happened to drop by GDC and you were there, please let me know. I took pictures with a couple hundred subscribers there and had a lot of fun meeting a ton of people. So I know that some of you watch live, so say hello if you happen to be one of them. All right. I wanted to, I guess, just start by going through some of my notes from GDC, some of the things that I thought were kind of big and interesting. I notice my video quality looks really low there on the stream. Hopefully that's not the case on the actual one. I guess let me know if the stream quality is bad there. So let's dive into it. What was the stuff? I'm pulling up my list right here on the side. And we'll get going. Okay, cool. It looks like it's good for everybody else. Just kind of rearrange things and get stuff into position. I just realized got my Odin shirt back there and my Unity shirt. It's a lot of fun meeting the Odin team in person. I hadn't met them all in person, met some of them, but I actually got to see them all in person and talk to them and have a lot of fun. It's fun meeting just a lot of people in person, though. There were a ton of people, a ton of you that I've talked to online that happened to be there, or I guess just didn't happen to be there. We're there, and we're doing some pretty interesting things. Seem like a lot of people have been making their own games. I grabbed a couple of different games that I've been checking out. I haven't played them all yet. I've got a couple installed. I'm gonna go through and then talk to some of those developers. I also got to schedule quite a few interviews. There are a lot of developers and people working on products there that I think have either interesting stories, they're building something that I think everybody could learn a little bit from, or they've kind of run into problems and solved problems that I think everybody could learn from, or some of them have done that and now they're building like API type solutions or product solutions that I think will be interesting. I don't want to spoil too many of them, but there's some pretty cool ones. But just yesterday, was it yesterday? Losing track of my days. I think it was yesterday. I got to do a really good interview with one of my buddies, Michael, on his game that he was building it and showcasing there, because it was fun watching. Last year, he kind of popped. I ran into him last year on the expo floor, and he showed me the concepts for this new game he was building. Let me see if I can find the card real quick. See if I can bend over without doing anything bad. Let's see. There we go. I knew exactly where it was. I've been looking at it constantly, but he's been building this wax candle dude game, and he just had the concept stuff last year, and then this year he actually had a little booth and was showing the game on the floor. You go up and play it, and I played it, and it was really cool. So there were lots of those, though, lots of stories of people who've been building some really cool stuff that I think is going to be really fun to talk about and share, and to be able to kind of dive into some of the more technical stuff with as well. So hello, hey. Everything is going great, and just catching up with chat. And yeah, I think Johnny Turbo may show up. He had a lot going on with the dot stuff. There are a lot of really big announcements. One of the things on my list was the writer announcement for dots. They've added a whole bunch of new dots integration into JetBrains Writer. So if you're doing any dot stuff, it's probably the perfect time to upgrade if you haven't already done your upgrade to writer. Sorry, not to dots. Yeah, if you're working in dots, you can probably check out the the writer stuff. It does a lot of auto generation, and it looks like it also finds and kind of warns you about problems, things that you've missed that you need to do with dots that aren't compile errors. So that was definitely a good one. And yeah, hopefully Johnny is able to pop in and talk a little bit about that. There was also a lot of really good kind of inside stuff that we got to see and that got announced around the user-generated content stuff. And I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. I don't have a specific game for it, but I would imagine that quite a few people do have some idea for UGC type games, things like VR chat or just a game, any game where you can bring in your own models, your own textures and that kind of stuff, or even your own code. It sounded like, oh, there's questions. There's going to be a Q&A section. Ask away. Ask questions all day long, and we'll dive into them, or at least I'll dive into them. So they were building out a new user-generated content system, though, that allows the players to basically create, store, and share that stuff along with, and I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to talk about this, some like portals and kind of front-end stuff for managing it. So they've got a kind of a whole system to allow you to build out UGC type games without having to kind of rebuild that whole tech, which I thought was really pretty cool. It was pretty interesting. There are lots of different ways that it could be used. I'm just not sure. I've got to figure out what I would do with it because I don't have anything specific. Let's see. Oh, don't need that. Just looking at chat spam here in Twitch. All right, let's go on. So another one of the things that was really big that they were talking about on the Unity side specifically, I've got my lists kind of in order with a lot of Unity stuff first because my first day was all just looking at Unity things. But it seems that there's a big push still with the UGS, with the gaming services. They've renamed Multiplay, and now it's, oh, I've forgotten the name. It has a new name now, though, a new Netcode hosting or net services name for it. And then they also, the exciting part was that they showed off the Mega City demo as a Dots multiplayer game. So if you didn't see this before, the Mega City demo was this one that they released. I think it was in I think it might have been 2018. It was one of the first Dots demos that they had where you could fly around in this like spaceship. It was like a space car flying around through some sci-fi advanced looking city that was procedurally generated and just kind of went on forever and ever. So it was like an endless giant sci-fi city like you would see in like a Star Wars movie that you would fly around. When that came out, it was cool because it worked on a phone. It was so performant that you could have these thousands of audio sources and all this stuff going on a tiny little device, like whatever the iPhone that was out at the time was. But it barely worked and didn't compile. Now what they've done with it is kind of fix it up. I don't know when when they kind of fixed it up. I assume it was pretty soon afterwards. But what they've done is turn it into a multiplayer game that's, I think it's set to 64 players by default. So it's like a battle royale in space using the Mega City demo and Dots for up to 64 players, although my understanding was that it probably can go quite a bit higher. 64 is just a good solid number to start at and work on a lot of systems. But I assume that with good hardware, it can go quite a bit higher than 64, and you can have a giant Dots demo of a battle royale style game. This is kind of more of a space flying one, but you can see how easy it'd be to convert that. And I think that they're going to be working on some demos to show how to do that for other types of games as well. Sounds like there's a lot of desire and push to make different types of networked games and get those out in front of people. Okay, so let's see. Here was one of the questions. What was your favorite announcement or reveal for the future of Unity or game development in general? Something you feel would be a major change? Well, that's probably the AI stuff. So this is the one thing that I'm a little bit afraid to talk about because we had a nice long inside session that was all NDA'd where they showed a lot of stuff that's coming, and I'm not 100% sure which things I was allowed to talk about. I can say that they were making some really cool AI things for developers. I think there's some stuff for players and for player type things, but there's a lot of really cool stuff for developers and programmers in Unity specifically. Well, programmers and artists and like tech artists in Unity that's coming with AI stuff that they're working on. There was a big kind of push and messaging around them wanting to do it legally and ethically. So they're trying to avoid all of the problems that people have been seeing recently with lawsuits from people copying things or using AI related stuff that in their stuff that might be too similar to something else. So they're trying, I think, really hard to make sure that they have good, clean data that's all legal so that there are no problems for anybody using it, including them, which is, I think, a big problem, probably a big and expensive problem. So they're working on that, but they've got lots of cool stuff coming. If you didn't see their little Twitch demo, or sorry, oh, that we got some people popping in. If you didn't see their Twitter demo, let me pop in. It looks like Johnny and Sam. Hello.
Hello.
I was gonna say, go check out the Twitter demo because it was interesting and it kind of showed the high level of what they're thinking. It wasn't necessarily what they've actually built though tools wise yet. So it was kind of interesting. So I was just Johnny, you're up all super high. I gotta climb up here. So I was just talking about the AI stuff and I don't remember what we're allowed to say about it. I don't know if you do, other than they're working on some cool stuff and trying to keep it ethical.
Well, the thing that's already public is the one that Keijiro worked on, which is the experimental ChatGPT plugin into Unity that blew up on Twitter. So that's already public. But I don't know if we can like talk further.
Yeah, that's I was really unsure on what we were able to talk about there. What about you, Johnny? Do you remember anything else?
I think I had my notes on here, what we could say and not, but yeah, it was basically just that they are, making tools for the Unity game engine just to, help improve your workflow and all that. And yeah, the data is not only going to be ethical, but it's also going to be relevant to game development. They're going to be training it on particular data sets that, make sense for the applications, and they're not just doing some giant database of a bunch of irrelevant information. So.
Right. That makes sense. I forgot about that part. They're talking about setting up actual data sets that are relevant to the specific type of thing that you want to generate. I really wish you could talk a lot more about that.
But... Well, yeah, and I guess we should clarify, by ethical data, we basically mean data that Unity completely owns. They, everyone who's contributing to this are, consenting that it's to be used for, training AI and all that. So, yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, there were some dots questions and other stuff, but I think before we jump into that, you should just introduce everybody. So Johnny from Turbo Makes Games, which talking about dots all the time, been on here a bunch. And Sam also has a YouTube channel. You want to tell everybody what your channel is, Sam?
Sam Yam.
And we'll link both of those in the description in the chat as well. And you can tell everybody what kind of game dev stuff you're talking about right now. And didn't you just start building a game?
Oh, me?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, I literally just started after GDC. It's going.
Awesome.
Cool. So there was a couple questions about dots that actually, I think we've already. Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, yeah. I'm just gonna say real quick. I just gotta hate to do this right away, but I just gotta show my channel because I am like dangerously close to 20,000 subscribers right now. Like I think I'm like 23 away.
What?
So if you're not subscribed to the Turbo Makes Games YouTube channel,
let's link it in chat right here. Make sure everybody is subscribed. We'll hop on. I need to get the little buttons set up to just pop that up. Nice. And then where's my window go? I lost it. Okay, so Johnny, I'm gonna, while I search for my other links, pop this question up. It says, is there any public information about world building based with dots, essentially? So any new stuff that came out? And I guess also just after that, is there anything just big with dots that was like the key thing that was announced?
Yeah, so actually I did put up a video this morning just kind of like going over everything that was kind of discussed about dots during the GDC week. Um, there wasn't any necessarily like big announcements. I think kind of the major thing is like, right now they're finally at the stage where they're putting it into full production ready status and all that. So they're really just kind of like expecting maybe like a flood of newcomers. So they want to, just make sure that everything is ready for that, and they want to, be able to support those people. So as far as like new, tools and features coming to Dots, sounds like that's going to be a little bit of a ways out for now. But I know there definitely are like kind of one of their kind of key pillars for like, building ambitious games is for making like large open worlds. So I think, those are some tools that we can expect when they start to, add more features to the Dots tool set later down the line.
Nice. And did you on the dots thing, the one thing that really stood out to me was the netcode for entity stuff and the Mega City multiplayer demo that's coming. Have you had a chance? Is that out now? Do you know, or is that coming soon? What was the status of it? Do you remember?
Yeah, they didn't have a release date on the multiplayer Mega City. It sounded like it was something that they like literally just made over the course of like a couple weeks, and they're like, "Oh, we threw it together pretty easily. It just kind of worked." So, I mean, that's definitely cool that they were able to kind of tack on multiplayer, if you will, at kind of a stage in development when it's kind of already far along. What else were you asking about?
Oh, just whether or not it was out and if you had played with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
hadn't really played with it, but yeah, that reminds me. The multiplayer, I think, was another like really important concept for Dots. I think the interesting thing that they said is they're basically drawing a hard line in the sand, saying, you know, netcode for game objects should only be used if you're making like casual or cooperative type games. But if you're trying to do anything like competitive, fast-paced, action-based, anything like that, you pretty much have to use netcode for entities, which means you need to use ECS. So that was like kind of surprising to me. And I'm proud of Unity for saying like, no, just you're not going to get netcode for game objects to work with these high performance type games. You need to use something more performant than that.
You got something, Sam?
Didn't they? I forgot who it was, or if we can talk about it. But didn't one presenter explain that he changed the netcode code to make it more performant? Was that the Megacity sample? But they were able to run a lot just by changing some of the source code for netcode. I think game objects.
Yeah, that was the netcode for game objects.
Okay.
Or was that so? There was also the one where Unity basically says they're offering the custom network transport layer, where they're basically giving you like a very low level version of the netcode, and you basically kind of like create your own netcode stack. So I think that could as well be like a viable option if you're making like more intensive games. You don't want to go like full ECS. So.
Yeah, but I definitely think it is possible to like extend netcodes because the code is open on GitHub and potentially reach those numbers without ECS. But maybe for the advanced physics and maybe too many players, the entities would be the best bet.
Yeah. It probably seems like maybe a little bit more of a recommendation to say like, if you have this type of game in mind, probably just start with this. But maybe it is possible to extend the netcode for game objects to fit some kind of higher performance needs.
Yeah, I got the sense that they were going to do that. It was just on a longer term path to add support for things like FPSs and RTSs into NGO. But I think that, and you could do all that stuff. It just gets difficult when you start to get to scale with the messaging and stuff. With dots and ECS, the way that you set up the data, it makes it a lot easier to just send over the inputs and not have to worry about sending over nearly as much data. It kind of simplifies things a lot, which is probably why they recommend it, because it tends to be the least error prone way to do like competitive games if you've got it kind of set up like that. But yeah, I think you could theoretically, there's no reason you couldn't build a game with NGO if you can optimize it right.
Yeah, and
So-
that was also like kind of reminds me of one of the other cool things they're talking about for like Dots netcode stuff. So there was the game Hero-ish, I think it was, that they showcased, where basically they said that they didn't, again, necessarily create the game with multiplayer to begin with, but then when they wanted to add multiplayer, they basically just went through and said, oh, these are some of the gameplay systems. We're going to have these run up on the server. These are the systems that gather input and do rendering, and we're going to run those only on the client. And they're basically able to just fairly easily make that separation, and everything just kind of worked right off the bat. So that was super cool.
Yeah, that's like a separation that you normally have to remember to do yourself and kind of think through when you're building those things out. You have to kind of architect it that way. But like ECS forces you to do that. It kind of forces you into a clean architecture for it. So it's nicely separated. And Yorai mentioned that snapshots and replication are way easier with dots, which kind of what I was trying to say, but in a much, much cleaner way. Oh, maybe your eye will pop on later. I'm not sure. I think I forget the timing. I lose track of time zones constantly. I don't know what time it is over there anymore. So, Sam, real quick, I wanted to drop a link for your channel as well and have everybody go subscribe. You want to tell everybody what kind of stuff you're talking about on there?
Sure. Yeah, I basically make Unity tutorials, and I just released a Netcode for Game Objects tutorial. It's like 2.5 hours long. It's a whole movie. And yeah, I just do random tutorials. I was known as the input system person for a while. And now I'll be starting to do more devlogs as my game progresses as well.
Okay. So you did a bunch on the new input system?
Yeah, that's how I actually gained my audience.
Hey, it's an interesting topic, and I think it was one that was kind of neglected by most people. And then you said you've been doing a lot of the Netcode for Game Objects videos recently, right? How did you find that?
Yeah, I just did the one video, but it's basically a movie. The whole feature movie. But it was interesting. I've never done networking, so it was a little challenging to kind of rework my mind to think of the client and the running and the server running the same code. And basically making sure that only one code runs on where I want it to run. But otherwise, the framework itself, I thought, was pretty well architectured, and it wasn't like outside of my grasp. Like I learned it in like 2 days or 3 days.
Nice.
So it wasn't that bad.
That's cool. Yeah, I found that it was pretty easy to get into as well. I had already had some networking experience, so I feel like I'm kind of biased though, and it makes it hard for me to know, like, is it actually easy or is it just easier than what I remember doing before with stupid sockets and sending UDP messages and all that stuff. So can I ask one more question about the input system?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So, because there's some chat about that in there. For people that are kind of getting into Unity and haven't switched over to the new input system, is there anything you can tell them that might like kind of push them over the edge? People that are like, oh, I don't want to go try that and go figure it out. It's too much of a pain in the ass or too confusing, or I don't need it. Is there anything you can say that might kind of encourage people to use it or make it easier?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just starting out, I just recommend learning it straight up instead of using the old one. Like Unity is going to shift to this new input system sooner or later. I don't know if they're planning on like merging it with the Unity editor yet, but it is their recommended input system, and it is much more flexible. So even if you don't need it at the moment, later on, if, for example, you want to add a controller, you don't need to rework your whole code to support that. You just easily drag it with like one button and add a controller support. And also it uses events, which is super useful. So now you don't have to check all the time. Like if this button is being pressed, now you can have events and check if the button has started to be pressed, is being currently performed, or if you have lifted up the finger, which I think is a major selling point, the event system, and being able to subscribe to these input events. And it just makes it more modular, and you'll save yourself a lot of time in the future if you just learn it now. It's a little disappointing that it's not like the main input system, but in Unity when you start out, but it should be. This should be the input system that you're currently using and learning. It's just so much more modular and extendable.
Yeah, I feel like it should probably get switched over to be the default, and then the problem will just go away of people not converting. I also really like the fact that it just does multiplayer split screen automatically for you, which is kind of nice for at least for some of the stuff that I like to do.
You don't need
and
to
rebinding.
Wire all the inputs and everything.
Rebinding is super complicated if it doesn't have like a system in place, but this one has a rebinding system in place, so you can easily implement that.
Yeah, that does make it easy. And there's also somebody's mentioning Rewired in chat, another great option if you're doing bigger input systems. I would stick with something free until you need something more advanced, but yeah, it's one that I've used multiple times, and I don't know anybody that's used it and didn't enjoy it and didn't like it or didn't want to use it again in their next project. Somebody asked, will text meshes ever be the default like text mesh pro? I hope so. I'm just glad that it's there by default now, and you don't have to go grab a package and all that stuff to find it. You just hit it and then it kind of appears.
Actually, that's what they recently did with the dots character controller. It was like it used to be called the rival asset. There was like a paid asset on the asset store. And then Unity acquired it, and then it was like free on the asset store for a little bit. But now you can just get it right through the package manager.
Yeah. That's nice. Hopefully they keep doing that with all of the really good assets. They did it with Text Mesh Pro, with they did it with, I think, UGUI, which was that, or NGUI. They brought that in and then turned it into the new UI system. A bunch of different ones. There's a comment though about the new HDRP stuff, and it says, I find the improvements brought in 2023 for HDRP lighting very interesting, with the water, the clouds, and the sky improvements and the architecture for the light mapper. Did you guys see anything really cool with the HDRP stuff? I remember seeing things, but I kind of lost track of all the cool HD stuff that was happening.
I haven't used HDRP ever, but what I remember from GDC was the clouds looked really good. They were improving the clouds, and the water system, they were also making it much better. That's what I remember. And some light probe stuff went over my head.
Yes, the light probe stuff, the light probe, or their probe volumes, right? So it was automatically doing the light probe, so you don't have to do it anymore, which is great, because I never remember to do it. And when I do remember, I never remember to go back and fix it later. It's like, and it's a tedious, boring thing.
Yeah, the cool part was that it basically scans the whole scene and determines where it should place the probes, and it detects if a probe is inside of like a building or a mesh, and then basically removes it, or if it's like in between a mesh, then it pushes out the probe. So
and it automatically adjusted the density, if I remember too, right? For like how many polygons were around there.
Mm-hmm. It's super cool. It kind of reminded me of Unreal in a way, like the procedural in a way.
Yeah, visually, with all that lighting, it did look really cool with the real-time lighting going on. I remember in those demos, it was super impressive. Oh, look at that. We've got Yori.
Hello.
Hi. How are you all doing?
Pretty good.
How are you?
Yeah. Hi, Sam. So, adaptive probe volumes.
Yes, adaptive probe volumes. That was the name.
Yeah. So that one has one really cool feature that I saw in CodeMonkey's video covering the GDC lately, where they're showing off finally the transition between probe volume sets. So right now the probes are an optimization form where you calculate the light at the point, and placing them is a mess because figuring out the right point where light would change is difficult. So manual placement wasn't fun. People just figured I'll evenly distribute them and I'll get a good enough result. That used to be not so good because a single probe would be applied to the entire mesh that you have. So if you have a big circle, and it would only use the closest probes, and then it wouldn't be like as good. But with adaptive probe volumes, you get per pixel calculation of like which probe to use. So the lighting looks way more accurate, and that allows you to not have to pick the exact points where light changes to put probes in. You can just throw a bunch of probes on the scene, but that still bakes light. You can't exactly let them have dynamic global illumination like Unreal has for the recent comparison, but they allow you to have sets of adaptive probes. So you could have like a daytime set and a nighttime set and a sunset set, and you can swap between them. And they made like a system to transition between them, like choosing how many percentages you want of like mixing, and that was really, really, really cool.
Yes, I remember that they had the blending essentially, like you said, from times, or I think they also showed seasons in the lighting so that it would change. Yeah, I'd totally forgotten about that part too. I just linked Code Monkey's video down below in chat for everybody as well. You go check that out. There was a lot of stuff. Code Monkey took. Oh, that's the wrong video. I linked the wrong Code Monkey video. But Code Monkey took ridiculous amounts of notes and talked about everything in those notes. I saw him writing the entire time. I was writing a whole lot in there. It's all in that video. So it was cool. Did you see anything else with the HDRP stuff, Uri?
So, I mean, adaptive probe volumes were in the Unite, not necessarily through the GDC that happened right now, and I wasn't at the GDC, so I'm kind of relying on content from the others. One thing that I did see that was really, really, really cool was the new demo scenes, but that was URP, if I recall correctly. I talked to Johnny, I talked to you about that, how I appreciated it. The new scenes like show off how you can actually use Unity to get like an actual high-end look. Like one of those scenes looked up straight up like something you'd put Overwatch characters in and start running around, and that was URP, which means like it's massively adaptable because universal render pipeline. So
yeah, that was the outdoor courtyardy area, right?
The garden,
what's that?
Like the Zen garden.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, so I really recommend everybody go watch that one because like they had flower petals and they had like high quality stylized meshes. Just from afar, but that like looked really awe-inspiring and confidence boosting because the HDRP scene that you get, the sample scene that you get when you open up Unity, like first time I want to see how HDRP looks, that's an amazing scene that like shows you all the features correctly. And then you open up URP and like you get like a tiny half room with like barely assembled planks. Yeah. So I didn't like that disparity, but now if you can like have those as sample scenes, that's going to be way more fun to like give people Unity and show them, yeah, this is what you can do with URP, which is like, so I see a lot of people talking about how they want to use HDRP because like I don't want to be to have my graphics scuffed, and they don't understand that like URP isn't just mobile; it's mobile and it's just in general for more performant things, but you can still get good looks with it. So there's that. Now, going back to your question, did I see anything that was interesting with HDRP? I don't have a lot of interest in HDRP myself, but I did see that they have a new water system going on, and I am kind of interested in that. If not for the fact that Powell has the like river auto material going on.
Yes.
But
The water system looked really cool too, and they showed. I don't know how much of that they publicly showed, but some really cool stuff with the water flowing and kind of doing a lot of the stuff that the river auto material kind of does, but built in.
Yeah. So there was more there. At least going off Code Monkey's video, there was the things coming off to 22 LTS regarding the decal layers, which is like something that should have been there from the beginning.
Yes.
But basically, to people who are not in the know, decals are something that you can like stamp on a surface, but which surface was a problem because you just had on any surface. And incidentally, characters are surface. So, decals on your characters sound nice until it's just supposed to be like a mark on the floor. And now it's over your character's shoe. And that's like, what's going on there? So that's really nice to have coming to the latest version. They also had the 6-way smoke, which you could have done before, to my understanding. But now they have a way easier format for you to achieve that in Unity.
And they're including a bunch of smoke with that. That had a bunch of assets included in there.
I think the smoke, they can bake it. The 6-sided smoke, they bake it and they can use it in different conditions, and it's also still affected by lighting.
Correct. So you traditionally you bake the smoke in other digital content offering applications like Houdini or Blender or whatever have you, and they actually have a full-on guide on how to do that in separate applications, if I recall. But the idea is that if you want high-quality smoke, Unity doesn't exactly give you a high detailed like documentation of how to do it, or it didn't until now. Now you can have like, here is a high quality smoke scene, and here is how you get high quality smoke, and here is how you make high quality smoke, so you can get that working in whatever format that you need. Because HDRP is all about showing the flair of like volumetrics of subsurface features and transparency, ray tracing, etc. So them giving you the tools to make HDRP really shine by not just being HDRP, but actually leveraging HDRP's power, that's great.
Oh, one thing I just remembered, they also mentioned they were adding layers for rendering so that you don't have to use the normal layers and you only get a certain amount. They also have like another set of layers that you can use just for rendering, which I think is pretty useful.
Yeah,
oh, nice. I missed that. I saw. It's nice having that for sprites, so that'll be awesome for 3D stuff too. I totally missed that.
Well, there is like one really big elephant in the room whenever you're getting to using Unity layers, because right now the Unity layers are used for like a lot. If you want the camera that only renders certain stuff, you use layers. If you want something that only has collisions in certain combinations, you use layers. But eventually you run out of layers. And also, if the same game object has a sprite and a collider, what do you do? So having that separated solves the entire problem, which is like a huge quality of life improvement. So yay.
So there was something else that already existed that I found out about at GDC too, which was the custom render textures. Those were the render textures that just take a shader and just renders out the shader. And I had not seen or used those before. I don't. Have any of you guys seen those before? Used them?
Yeah, they existed for years, if I recall.
Yeah, I just didn't know that they were there. And it's one of the things that like I randomly came across. There were two things that I randomly came across that already existed. That and find objects by type with a by instead of.
Yeah,
didn't realize that was there until I was typing in writer, and all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell is this thing just popped up? And then I had to go Google it and figure it out, and found out that there was an optimizable version that doesn't do the sorting. No clue that existed.
Yeah, they actually had a blog post about that recently. So for those not in the loop about it, Unity traditionally has find objects of type, which means like, I don't care, just get me all the objects in the scene of that type, because I know there is like one out there and I really, really want that. But Unity would traditionally do this thing where they all want this to be consistent. So they always sort out the result for you. But that sorting isn't exactly necessary if you know you're only looking for like one, or if you don't really care and you just want the first. So there you go, more optimized methods. And to avoid confusion and destroying old functionality that relied on the sorting, they gave them a different name. So now you have find objects of type, find objects by type, and I think there was another one. I don't remember the last one, but there is another one, I think.
I'm not sure, but yeah, this is the one, by type, and then it's got the parameters for the find object sort mode. Yeah.
Did they talk about Cinemachine 3 in GDC?
Ooh,
I don't think they did, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I think something just came out regarding Cinemachine 3.
Yeah.
Weird
So
that
they've been covering it more lately. I don't remember exactly where. There was a post 4 days ago. Regarding Cinemachine 3, which was really nice to read that written in their own way, because they had a video of like 35 or so minutes a few months back showing Cinemachine 3, but now they have like an organized blog post where you can see everything regarding it. So that's like really, really fun.
And for everybody who hasn't seen it, you can tell them what the difference was with Cinemachine 3.
Yeah, so traditionally speaking, Cinemachine came out. It was an asset, if I recall, and then Unity got it. And then Unity had... Did they make Cinemachine 2 and then it became an official Unity package? Or was it that they got Unity Cinemachine and then they made Cinemachine 2 as a package?
I think it's the second. I think that when it was bought, it was version 1 or even pre-1 when it came in. I think it was 1 point something, though.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact detail of the history there, but right now we have Cinemachine 2 as a package in Unity that anyone can import and use to author how they want their camera to work without writing their own camera scripts. And it has a ton of features, really good ones, like camera mixing, compositing, dolly tracks, free look, which lets you move the camera around how you want, a composer where you can say like, find all the objects here, make sure they're in the frame, giving you extra features like making sure that the camera always stays within the same room so it doesn't go through walls. That's something that a lot of developers struggle with. There is like a literal click, make this happen button in Cinemachine. So it's a really good asset. It's like one of the assets that no matter packages. It's one of the packages that like nobody would argue is a good or a bad one.
Right, you pretty much always just want to use it by default unless you need a better or different, more controlled camera controller. Building your own.
No,
most people need something, and this is better than flapping it at your camera as a child.
Yeah, and even if you have a simple camera and you just want to have like a single more complex scenario, instead of like writing your own specialized camera for that, you can literally just import Cinemachine, make your camera be a standard virtual camera, which means don't do anything, just have a camera here, and then you can like use all Cinemachine features with your own custom camera scripts, which is like, yay, it's good. So Cinemachine 2 is good, but... and here's why Cinemachine 3 needed to exist. It hid a lot of the details from developers, and it was really difficult to use because of these hidden features. So what do I mean? They literally hid game objects with components in order to make Cinemachine 2 work. There was like literally hidden from inspector or hierarchy game objects in your scene just for the purpose of managing Cinemachine. And additionally, the components themselves had a ton of member names that were using the standard Unity format of like member, which wasn't really fun to engage with. Like when you're trying to like intuitively guess what the field name is and you're not finding it.
M_targets and
So those are going away. They decided it's going to be public facing in a more in the way that users expected. So member names are now cleaner. The UI is now cleaner. So the components used to be like bloated, and you had like a single mega component with a ton of features and like very few plugins. Now it's a bunch of smaller components that are more composited towards exactly what you need, and there's less like jank that you have to go to trash that you have to go through to find the one setting that you want. And on top of that, they made all the implementations better. One thing that like really annoyed me when I tried to use Cinemachine in the past was that in order to make a camera work with a certain character, and say you have local multiplayer or even regular multiplayer and you just want split cameras, you had to use the layers system, which we just talked about regarding rendering and physics. You also had to use that to control which camera uses which virtual cameras in the scene. But now they made that have its own like layer system, so you can separate which cameras use what, which renderers use what, and which physics use what, which is great. They're finally separating it all. No more overlaps. So that's fantastic. I literally had a Unity blog and Unity forum post about that years ago. So I'm like super happy about that one specifically. They also replaced the dolly tracks, which were like their own implementation of splines, to use the official splines package, which is good.
Yep, Walter called that out in chat.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew, we're talking about Cinemachine 3. Your eyes explaining how it's basically more Unity-ish and less plugin-ish. It's more Unity native, and everything's kind of in components. They also that means like the things when you're talking about splitting stuff out. When you talked about the camera auto blocking on the wall, right now you do that through adding like an extension on the Cinemachine camera, and that's like one of the things that will now be just a separate component, correct?
Well, it was a separate component before, but yeah. I mean,
now you'll add it as a component and not through a drop down on the thing.
I assume they're still wanting to have the drop down eventually, because that's just quality of life. You don't have to know that the script exists somewhere out there. They're just like giving you a select option of the extensions that you want. But it's cleaner to look at, which is what's important here, because you don't want to be bogged down by like, oh, I just added this one component and now I have like 70 fields I have to look at. Why did I add this? Is this a virus? So it solves that, because you want clean components. Like when you make your own first script, it's going to have like 1 to 5 fields, and then Unity comes in and like, here is Cinemachine, it has 70. So fixing that was important in my opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. I think we're supposed to get some info on that in the next week or a couple weeks from the Cinemachine team. I was waiting for some presentation on that. That should be cool. I want to see what they do. I really want to make the switch though, but I'm just waiting for it to actually come out. Andrew, you're rocking Gloom in the background. Oh, you got your Gloomhaven up there. I see.
Yeah, that's the Gloomhaven that has never been played and may never actually be played.
Got the stack of board games that were aspirational.
Yeah, it was on sale. It was only $80, which is like a discount, and I like big boxes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I've got quite a few of them myself. So since you just did hop in, Andrew, real quick, GDC, anything that everybody should know about or saw, or that just was fun and exciting for you?
I didn't get to see that much on the GDC stuff. I was busy most of the time. I got to walk around total of maybe 90 minutes. I was actually surprised. I didn't see that much stuff that blew me away this year. Maybe I didn't get to see enough. That could be part of it. But like when walking around the show floor, I saw the Tilt 5 again, still using assets from the asset store in their demo scenes, new demo scenes, still having a line around them to use it. A lot of cool stuff, but nothing that really blew me away. But I really didn't get enough time, I think, to dig into any specific booth or ask questions of anyone, unfortunately.
That's fair. It's definitely a busy time. You get to meet with lots and lots of people, and do lots of other stuff.
Yeah.
Let's see. I had something on my list. I'm trying to remember where it was.
I just remembered they also worked on like improving the speed tree, but that's like in addition. And then they also improved I think it's Weta tools, where now you can customize the face more easily. Like the company for I believe $1,800 for each character, they create a blend shape for you, and you can easily
right.
in Unity you can import that and easily animate the face.
I forgot about that. That's right. And they were saying that for that enemies demo, they had done some major optimizations there on the Weta stuff, right? And they've gotten it down to like 15. Or was it like it went from a
15?
couple gigs to 15 megs or something like that?
50 megabytes or something.
Yeah.
Which was crazy for that demo. If you haven't seen that one, that's the one with the realistic woman and the fire and all the lighting and stuff going on in the sci-fi looking steampunky environment.
I'm just trying to imagine how they managed to squeeze it into such a tiny size, because like I just imagine the skin texture on that face would be bigger than 15 megs.
I think what it was is they were talking about it was like a large number of gigabytes of like motion capture data, like facial capture data, but then they changed that over to basically be like the blend shapes rather, so that it doesn't like track all that data. They can just kind of do it all like programmatically.
Yeah, okay, so it became from vertex animation into like blend shape curves, changing just the values on each blend shape.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes way more sense.
It does. That explains it more to me too. Now I know how they do it. Interesting. Cool. Well, trying to think of AI stuff. Andrew, real quick, and Yorai, have you seen any new at GDC? I didn't see a whole lot. It looked like there were a couple companies kind of starting with AI stuff. There's one doing some NPC chat, but I think that there's going to be probably a lot more in the next few weeks and months, probably, these companies popping up. And Unity did do some minor announcements, although, like I said, I'm kind of afraid to talk too much about it because it was all NDA'd and I don't remember what I can say. But did you guys see any announcements out of GDC or recently on AI stuff that was hitting game devs?
Well, I'll just say this first. I wasn't at GDC, so I can talk however much I want, and I know nothing about what the Unity did there. So,
yeah, they didn't tell you anything NDA'd, so you don't have to be scared.
So I didn't see much regarding Unity and AI except Keijiro's ChatGPT video proof of concept, which we analyzed on Jason's Stories server. So that was fun to look into the code and see how that worked, which is basically just give me a prompt that is a script, I'll paste it into a file, I'll run that file, and then I delete the file. So that's a really easy proof of concept that like literally anybody can drag and drop into their project right now and adjust as they see fit. But of course, you want something a bit more polished than that, I assume. I did see the 1 minute Unity AI announcement video, which is like telling you nothing except magic happen, please. So I want to see more, but waiting lists and like crickets in the meantime. And in regards to like general game development, I'm seeing a lot just of new AI systems that are coming up alive, and like the simple fact that you can use them raises the level of how each game should come out going forward far higher than I expected it would be by this year. Like, for example, with 11 Labs, you can generate voices that can talk about any text. So now there is like literally no excuse to not add voice acting into your game, at least at a minimum level, because players tend to not read, and like being able to hear it passively as you play, it even cuts out like the entire need to have a constructed dialogue system, because you can like hear it as it happens, which is like not stopping the player in order to talk. It's a major quality of life improvement if you can use voice acting in games, and that's now commercialized, democratized. How do you say it?
Yeah, democratized. Now anybody can do it. And that one, it's 11 Labs, right?
Yeah, that's the one that Jason Story and I have a lot of fun like talking about recently. There are other implementations. We previously talked about which one was it? The other solution that you showed. There was a site before that.
The other voice one, I know
Yeah.
what you're talking.
Replica Studios.
Replica, yeah.
Yeah. So there are solutions out there for voice acting, which again is a major quality of life improvement for players. So I recommend looking into that if you can. It's also fun to just mess with your own voice, because now you can localize your own ability to speak into any language, even ones that you don't know, which is like huge, because now your game can reach more players. Other than that, there's like major improvements in how AI draws art, but again, there's needs to be an ethical source for that, and luckily Adobe apparently is working on a new project to have that. So they're making their own app with ethically sourced AI training, from my understanding. So I'll be looking to see that coming soon, TM. I've seen some tools coming out regarding making AI music, which you can like offer, hey, make this section a bit more upbeat, and then make this section stressed, and this section like relaxed, and like you can really offer how you want it. Add tools here, add tools there, split the layers between the tools. So Jason Story can do like his fun things of like enabling a layer and disabling a layer dynamically for gameplay purposes. So I'm really excited to see how that's going. Like the speed at which we'll be able to offer game assets with high quality to make dynamic experiences, like it's going nuts. As far as Unity goes with Keijiro's demo, I think it has a ton of potential. I wouldn't let it run code personally. So that's just fear of things going wrong. If you accidentally tell it to give me a script that deletes everything, and it doesn't understand that it's supposed to only delete things in the hierarchy, and it deletes system 32. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, so I would be a bit more careful about how you let code run with AI's control. That said, it is in Unity's domain, so it's like it's limited in the scopes of using namespaces it has by default, and hopefully the AI doesn't come up with the idea to just import all of that in.
Yeah, I think you'll probably be fine there. Yeah, the new AI stuff Unity's doing, it's going to be cool, but hopefully they can talk about it soon. Maybe they can talk about it at GameDev Guild. That'll be perfect timing. I should probably share a link for that, by the way. If you haven't signed up already, there's a link in the chat now, and down below it's coming up in May, and it's sponsored by Unity and a bunch of other awesome companies, and talking about game dev stuff and maybe some of the new AI things. I wonder if I could convince them to talk about some AI stuff there. I doubt it, but I'll try.
Well, speaking of AI, I saw Ubisoft released kind of like an AI type thing. They call it Ghostwriter. It's basically just a way to kind of like automate writing like NPC flavor text, basically. Just kind of like taking out like all like the, you know, boring work for writers that, you know, are just kind of like, you know, writing like, oh, it's sunny outside today kind of thing. Just kind of like automates a lot of that. So apparently they did a talk at GDC. So once it goes up on the vault, I'm gonna check that one out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that as well. It sounds interesting. I think that AI for writing is gonna probably make it so either so that the writing is a lot better or there are a lot less people doing the writing. Right. So this we'll see. We had a lot of writing in games. I've seen just ridiculous amounts, and most of it ends up not being read. So
yeah, because it's not voice acted.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the voice acting is kind of the way to go. And I'm thinking about like one of the things I did when I was working on EverQuest 2 was see how much of the text people actually read. So we'd get all the dialogues, and one of the producers one day was like, how much do people actually read of this stuff? And I found that it was like less than 1% of the people spent more than a second without clicking next and actually reading anything. Like way less than 1%. It was like, you know, barely anybody would read anything at all. But the parts that had the voiceovers, people would listen. So a lot of that game, like the initial stuff, had voiceovers. I think there was like a $20 or $30 million voiceover budget on that thing. Actually, it might have been even more that they spent on those. but the whole thing was voice acted for the pre-expansion stuff. So those things people would kind of hear and listen to because it was talking, and they would go slow and listen to it. But the text ones were just reading. They're just spam, click right through, and pretty much ignore it all and just look at the rewards and the quest objective stuff that would pop up afterwards. That's all they cared about.
Yeah, and you have to remember that like it's not only the voice acting that has to have a lot of work going into it. It's once you write text and you want that voice acted, and the text has to change later, you have to redo the voice acting, which is like a huge cost in both attention of the developers themselves and the stress of deciding, okay, I don't have infinite money to hire a voice actor for infinite amount of time. I want to get the text locked down and then have the voice actor play it once, which is like, it's not something that comes easily or free for people who are on tight budgets. And games either flop or like make big successes these days for the most part. So it's important to most smaller developers to get it right the first time. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. Also, the idea of just writing text is a lot of time to get into like the context of what your character is supposed to know, what is the situation within the game world for the character to talk as they talk, what other like needs that the character has to consider in the writing. And then the worst part is the actual localization of all of that, because traditional localization done by like Google Translate wouldn't pick up nuances or unique terms to your game world. So having an AI tool that like knows your game world, how to translate certain terms, how characters should speak in each language in a more natural way for what they do is way better, because Google Translate is going to like take pirate speech and turn that into formal speech, and you don't want that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
One of my favorite games back in the day was Facade. I don't know if anyone's played it. FACADE.
I don't even know if I heard of that.
But it was like 10 years ago, and you would type stuff into the chat and it would respond to you based on what you typed in. And at the time, that was super cool. Like, that was revolutionary. I don't know how they did that, but seeing all this AI stuff, now I'm excited to see like dynamic conversations with voice being generated real time to respond to what you're doing. I think that'll really increase immersion in a game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's going to be big when it starts to hit all like the home devices too, like the Alexas and Google Homes at my house and stuff. But one of the things I wanted to make, I got the idea while I was at GDC, was I got the Tilt 5 board that Andrew was talking about. I've got one set up out there, and I want to make a little Cortana that I can just talk to and have it talk back and have a little hologram pop up and talk like Cortana. I thought about it because I got the thing there and I got a needler in the background so I can see it back there. I figured like Cortana should be right up there, pop up and talking. And with ChatGPT, I feel like I could just talk to it and have it talk back and just do the voice conversion and a little hologram playing. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just stand there and wiggle its mouth around and I'm good. You know? So I want to play with that. I think it'll be a lot of fun, but I think it's going to be really cool in games as well as it starts to get like become something that doesn't have to be a service. Yeah, somebody mentioned chat like Jarvis, almost exactly, except stuck on a table instead of stuck to my face. Unfortunately, I'll get one stuck to my face eventually.
There is one more thing I wanted to mention in regards to AI and offering content, is that right now the thing that I'm seeing the least of is AI 3D animation, which is arguably the hardest one to do because it has to be aware of like what it's actually animating in regards to everything else, because the bones have hierarchy and like the model, which is the only thing it can really rasterize correctly, changes a lot, and it like has to fit all the animated types ever, like realistic, cartoonish, robotic, etc. So I understand why it's difficult, but that's the one I really want to see the most. And Unity had a tool for that in Unite, where they showed like the humanoid drag and drop like really quickly animate. So that's something that I recommend people should go and look for and possibly sign up if there's like anything to sign up for. I don't even remember at this point.
Probably the AI beta.
if it's related to if it's there, then sure. Like I thought it would be a separate tool in the animation category of the AI category. But it's really great. The only tool I know right now that like lets you do this remotely competently is Cascadeur, which is like publicly available as a content offering. Yeah, that one. So that's one part. The other part that I'm seeing a bit more popping up recently regarding an AI is 3D world offering. And there's this one really cool project I've seen that something about taking an image that is going all 6 ways, like a cube map of skies or whatever, but having it be a level generated by AI, of course, and then giving it depth textures, and then taking those depth textures and turning those into a 3D model. Because, you know, if you can see depth and you know the angle, you can just say, yeah, drop a vertex that far away, and then you have a world. So it's a world limited to the one sphere that you generated. But if you can do a lot of that, you can like really quickly prototype levels. Oh yeah, I like the hills here and the rivers there. Make me this level like depth map. It really literally gives you a mesh, and then you can like carve out fine details as you want. It's going to be a real game changer. And I've also seen some Unreal based tool where you just type how you want the world to look, and it would like populate things. So you can have like a street, and it would place houses, and it would place street lamps, and it would place plants. That's been circling the internet lately. So I'm really excited to see like how is level design going to be affected by this. And of course, like my favorite, my dream of AI would have a character have custom ammo made for the world and scenario and whatever you want. But we are really far away from that still.
Yeah.
Also, to Dreamy Silver, regarding Cascadeur, doesn't have a completely AI generated animation, but it has AI assisted auto posing for humanoid characters, where you can keep balance on the character while posing. Yeah, it has that, and it has way more tools as well. It's a really good, powerful tool. It has ballistics projection. It has like corrections for your physics simulations. That's not something that's AI based. It's just good ground truth calculations, but it's doing them well, and it's doing them in an intuitive way to alpha. Like Cascadeur is great. Yeah.
So Sam, you just posted the link to the Code Monkey video, or just
11 minutes ago he just uploaded
Hot off the
Unity AI
press.
video, so go check that out if you want to learn more.
yeah, this is good stuff. Unity AI doing all kinds of stuff. Oh, I think that a little bit about animation right there. You can go find out about the Unity. Yeah, I thought that was part of it, the AI stuff. I better stop sharing that though. I don't want to go through this whole video. That is freaking awesome. You know, if you haven't checked it out, I mean, I'm sure everybody here is subscribed to Code Monkey, probably got the notification. Just make sure that you add it and go watch that later. I'm gonna go watch it afterwards and see what's in there so I can make an AI video myself.
The real question is everyone here subscribed to Turbo Makes Games? We're 13 away from 20K.
Oh,
I'm already subscribed. I can't help.
let's make sure still subscribed. How many more we got? Oh, I can only see the 0.9.
Yeah, we're 13 away.
All right, can we get 13 more subscribers? Let's drop the link in here. Hopefully, yeah.
Regarding Cascadeur, I started using it for my game because I don't know how to do animations. And this looked like the easiest tool, and it's free to start with. And it's really easy to set up, and it's really cool. You just click one button and it activates the physics for you. So if I have it jumping and then I just click activate physics, then it like changes the position of like the body and the feet. So it kind of bounces when it hits the ground automatically. And I found that really cool.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, Yori has been talking about it for a long time. I don't know if anybody else has actually used it for anything. Yeah, so the first one, that's awesome. So Yori, you want to say something there?
So I wanted to say something more in regards to AI, but Python isn't really a strong suit for me because I'm more like a pure C# developer. Like I know other languages, but I just don't like interacting with them. And one thing I've been using AI a lot for recently is making all the dream scripts that I knew I could write but would take me way too long. And I'm just saying, hey, ChatGPT, write this, write that, write this. And I have like a bunch of things that I got done that I accumulated over the years in my wish list, done in like the past 3 weeks in almost no time at all. I literally have like a bunch of files from an old game that like I was learning like reverse engineering, and I wanted to see like the animations, and it's a unique format that like no other game has, and I can't for the life of me be bothered to like manually convert it. So I had ChatGPT write me a script that starts like converting it into FBX, and then like from FBX make it way better for like game usage, and then from that like clean it up and like make it a bit more stylish, and like take the model and like it's really fun to have ChatGPT do complex things. I literally had it make Blender plugins for me.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and one thing I'm experimenting on but haven't like fully realized just yet is that Cascadeur does have a Python API, and I am tempted to have it do something like figure out animation curves on my character animations and like auto cascadeurize them. If that makes any sense at all. But yeah, it's really fun. So just to explain, as Sam just relayed, Cascadeur has a ballistics trajectory thing and also animation curve correction. Like it uses understanding of how humans move in order to give you some auto-posing, but that auto-posing relies on having like very few keyframes, because if you give every frame being a keyframe, it says, I'm respecting what you offered, I'm not going to change anything, which means I have to go and manually remove the parts that I don't really care about, and my camera is dying. I have no idea why. Okay, I'm good. Yeah. Okay. So I want to have something that just takes my animations and figures out like what are the real important keyframes and discard the rest and let Cascadeur take over and make everything nicer and like higher quality, and then have that like be dropped into Unity, and also fix the unholy animation root rotation and scale, which I see on way too many models. My camera is dying. I have no idea why. But yeah, I've been using AI to just fix everything regarding my models lately. It's fantastic.
Nice. I hadn't thought about it for that. I guess I haven't had any new models come in since all the AI stuff took off, but it seems like a very good use, because I'm terrible at writing that stuff myself too. So having it do it would help me a lot.
There's one more thing I want to bring up here. If you're a developer of any sort and you want to have scripts, you can generally have a great success with ChatGPT if you just give it like clear instructions. But the thing that I find even nicer is that you're not necessarily constrained to just game engines. If you have a Python console installed on your computer, you can literally have it write general Python scripts and just run them, and it can do a lot. I had a thing where I like needed to pick a certain set of files, and I just wanted to get all their file paths, but I didn't want to like start typing it manually because it was like 70 something files. So I literally just told it, hey, make a Python script that prints out my clipboard selection, and I just like selected 70 files, pressed like that script, and I have all the paths ready in the format that I needed. There's like so much power in this.
Yeah, I've been using it for some PHP and WordPress stuff that I barely understand, because I had to deal with them, and I don't understand it at all, or I understand it, but I don't know how the hell to write it, because I hate PHP.
Yeah, and also another fun thing is website scraping. So if you have like a web page and you want to get like things depending on that web page, like the image links, you can literally just have it, hey, make me code that scrapes the web page and finds the links of like that format. Yeah.
So Johnny, you've been quiet for a little while, and there was a question about dots. They asked if we talked about dots already, which kind of did, but you can just really quickly recap what the coolest parts of dots were.
Yeah. We talked about it a little bit earlier, and I also did a video that's up on my channel right now, just kind of like going a lot more into detail on everything that was kind of showcased with dots at GDC and all that. I'd say just like high level overview, basically. Again, now we're getting like really close to it being in full production ready support. That's going to be basically when the 2022 LTS comes out, which should be very soon here. But so yeah, they're basically getting prepared for it to be in the full support right now. So rather than like working on implementing a bunch of new features and things like that, they're kind of transitioning into a bit more of a support role where they're just kind of supporting a lot of the new developers who are coming to ECS, making sure that that's working smooth, bug free, and all that before they start adding in some more features. I know there are a couple of features that they are going to be prioritizing. One's like the dots animation package, which is something that's been kind of needed for a while, and some other tool sets that relate to building large open worlds and just kind of interacting with game objects. But no specific timelines on those things right now.
And there was one other, there one other thing though, with JetBrains, right, and dots. There's kind of a relatively big announcement that.
Yeah. So JetBrains, they have a bunch of new dots tools that are all built into the IDE. It's super nice. It just kind of allows you to automate some of the boilerplate script creation of different systems, data components, jobs, aspects, all sorts of things like that. And just kind of give you more insights into your dots code and everything like that. So definitely really exciting stuff.
Yeah, it looked like a big update. Go ahead.
Yeah, so with JetBrains, or specifically with Rider, previously, Johnny, we talked about how we made like autocomplete scripts for ourselves to like write systems and all that. So now that's like just gonna be built into Rider, so nobody else has to go through what we went through, like to write our own systems. And then there's like the code generation view, which is just a good thing to have because we're entering the era of code gen being something that's widely used. Networking libraries traditionally try to use that to save you from writing a ton of manual code for the networking purposes, so it's useful there as well. But yeah, the Rider thing is really nice. The thing I'm more excited about is dots actually starting to see mass adoption. Like there are very few assets out there that are using dots aspects, mostly just bursts and jobs, but starting to see things attending to ECS is going to be like fantastic because ECS is fun to offer with, and I do want it to become stable first rather than adding features. But I'm still really salty that they don't have like multiple world rendering going on.
And somebody's asking about an animation package.
Yeah. So basically, I've just kind of like confirmed that they are working on something, but no real update on status or timelines or anything like that. So I'd say, if you are working on a ECS project right now and you are looking for an animation solution, actually, I'll see if I can pull up the link for it. But one of my community members has a forum post on the Unity forums, basically just going over kind of all the other, options that you have for doing animation with dots. So there can be, whether you're using like a just a game object and you're kind of mirroring the position of an entity or some other third-party packages. So it just kind of goes over, all the available ones right now. So let me grab the link for that here and I can share it with you.
Nice. And while we're at it, and you're sharing stuff, I'm going to reshare.
I'm one subscriber away from 20,000 right now. Who wants to be number 20K?
Just going to refresh, wait for that number to bump up there. Oh, there we go. It just went live to 20K.
Refresh for you before
Congratulations.
me. Congrats. The live thing. Thank you.
Yes, congrats. It's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you all so much.
Sam, you mentioned something that I think is definitely worth talking about. It's not Unity related. It's Unreal related. It's still game dev stuff, though. And that was the Unreal update. And Epic had a huge booth at Unite. I know last year they had no booth. They weren't there. And it seems like they just took that budget from last year and combined it with the budget for this year and had the biggest booth I've probably ever seen. It just kept going on and on and on. You want to tell everybody what it was, though, that they were showing off that was so cool?
Yeah, their booth was actually 2 stories. I don't know how they accomplished that, but they, but it was really large. But I checked out their Fortnite creator, and it's really cool. The biggest change that I saw was that they now support custom assets. So I think that's going to be a game changer, and going to direct it more to take Roblox's audience and transfer the Roblox people over to Fortnite, because the guy I talked to was saying around 60% of people who play Fortnite play mostly the custom levels made by other players. And I've seen videos on these custom levels, and they're actually insane because they use Lumen and Nanite. Like now Fortnite uses Lumen and Nanite, so the graphics has increased by a lot. And with these custom assets, it seems like essentially they're going to be giving developers more power to make maps. But a lot of the functionality is limited to like Fortnite specific mechanics. So you can't like super edit the custom character controller. You kind of have to use what they already have there. So they have like vehicles, they have the third person. I believe there's a new FPS that came out that looks like an actual FPS game, but it's in Fortnite. And I was like, what game is that? It's a Fortnite game. And what's really cool is they give 80%, I think, to the developers of revenue. So Roblox takes 70% away from the children, which is debatable ethically. But Unreal is actually giving 80% revenue share if you create something in Fortnite. I believe it's 80%. So I'm really excited to see what this comes out to. I think Roblox is going to get obliterated personally, but
yeah, it seems like a bad sign for Roblox. I'm glad I sold my tiny little bit of Roblox stock that I had when it was at its peak. It was a very, very tiny little bit. But yeah,
so
that's.
So in regards to that, so for those who haven't seen the Unreal keynote, there were a bunch of stuff there, but the biggest thing, as you just said, was the Unreal Engine for Fortnite, or UEFN, and that has a ton of things into it. The Lumen and Nanite are like, it's really fun to see just high quality game levels being offered by like regular players, because if you try to make something like that in, say, Team Fortress, you'd have to deal with light baking, which we all know is the best feature of every game engine out there. That's in massive cynical quotations there. But the thing I found the most interesting was that they have their own like scripting language for it, and they called it Verse, which is like, I think that one has a ton of potential, because now you can have your own game modes and game features in Fortnite, and you can, with enough tenacity, probably hide out the character and like insert your own character controller made in Verse, so you can have whatever game mode that you do want. As we all know from modding experience, if there's a will, there's a way to rig in features.
Yeah, I would go even further than that, Uri, and say that instead of throwing in your own thing, what it means is if you have a dinosaur scripted in Verse that works with any of these Fortnite games, that works with all of those. But my understanding of the Verse language is that there's different layers. One's for Fortnite. There's a layer for Unreal Engine. There's going to be a layer technically for Unity, for Godot, for whatever, so that you could take that dinosaur and perhaps port it over to any Unity game that works with Verse, any Unreal game that works with Verse, which means now the metaverse can have value, because that's ultimately what it is. So when you buy something in Fortnite, you can now play it in some other game as well. And then someone mentioned, the Fab Store being very agnostic, openly agnostic to engine. Asset Store is agnostic to engine already. They're just not open about it so much. But that means that I see it as a metaverse play. I see this whole thing that Unreal is doing is basically saying we're going to just define the code and the tech to drive the metaverse and keep it having value for the future.
So in regards to go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you think about it, it's also like a good play for them, because now they'll keep ensuring people to play Fortnite. they don't have to keep adding levels themselves as much. They'll just keep developing the features and their engines, and now the users can provide the content, a lot of the content.
Yeah, and if the users are getting a good pay cut out of it, I mean, it's just kind of a win-win.
The real benefit there is that users get to use Fortnite to complete stuff that they don't know how to make, which like really lowers the bar, because making a good quality character controller, that's a high end task there. There's so many games that like lack in a good quality character controller. So just getting that is already a huge thing. And then getting all the Unreal Engine and specifically Fortnite assets, which have been proven to be attractive, available for use. That's like huge. There was this one talk years ago at this point by the Blender guru, who showed that like a single street can cost you $200,000 to offer in the past, but now, like, if you get all the assets to make that in high quality, that's from one of the most popular games in the world, and you can just throw that in. That's a gigantic save in time, money, and stress for anybody who wants to just prototype something like a level. Like, you can literally just go in Fortnite right now and just build a level and say, I want something kind of like that. Well, Fortnite would be too gamey and like limited in how you can place the building walls, but now you have Unreal Engine for Fortnite, so you can do that exactly as you want. Huge.
And you can generate your concepts with Midjourney too. I think it made me think of all the things that used to be difficult and are now easy. It used to be expensive and time consuming, and now, yeah, you just have the computer do it kind of magically for you.
Oh, yeah, about that. I had a script turn a single player game prototype I wrote into multiplayer with Mirror. I didn't even tell it to use Milo. I just said, make this script for Unity work in multiplayer. And said, to do that, you're going to need to import Mirror. And here is the script in Mirror fashion. And like, okay. And I literally just replaced my thing with that. And I replaced the another script with that. And I literally had a game working in Milo.
That sounds like a very interesting video.
Yeah, so that one was like a very simplistic prototype, but it knows how to use most of the networking features correctly. Like, I was really baffled.
I'm not too surprised. I'm just waiting for it to start taking over, ruling the world. So there was one other thing I wanted to talk about, but first I wanted to make sure to share Sam's channel again too, so everybody can go subscribe and make sure she stays ahead of Johnny on subscribers.
Whoa.
I'm almost at 40.
Almost to 40. Just need
we can get Sam to 40 on
1,600
this.
people can just go subscribe real quick.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
So yeah, I wanted to share that, but I also I wanted to get everybody's opinion on the news that came out yesterday about the E3 cancellation. So looks like E3 was canceled, and I'm not sure, but I get the sense that it's permanently canceled now.
Yeah, it's done. I'm sure it's done.
Which is kind of a shame, because it's one of the things that's like in driving distance to me. It's like an hour away. So it's like one of those things that just kind of pop over there and go check out and have fun. Super packed all the time. But yeah, it's kind of sad. Anybody got thoughts on it? Or have any of you gone to E3 before?
I haven't gone. I when I was a kid, I was like dreaming of going there with my brother. But that's kind of off the table now. I do think that like for the past few years, it was already gone, because without the big free being there, it's kind of like it lost a lot of its value, because most of the connection building can still happen in other events. It's not specific to E3. And then if you want to think about the advertisements for games that are going on there, people would usually be attracted to like watching the new big things. As much as it's good exposure for the smaller games, if it's a show of just the smaller games, there's going to be less audience for it. So when the big three like bailed out in recent years, I thought it was already kind of doomed there to a degree, and they don't show any intent to come back. So
yeah, It's sad. So
Yeah,
I
no,
just
it was
wanted to
just
see.
always.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was just saying to say it was always cool to just have like a week just dedicated to like awesome new game announcements and everything. And I know Jeff Keighley's kind of doing his like replacement, but E3 has just been like such a, I guess, kind of nostalgic thing now for a long time. So
Yeah. It's definitely going to be missed. Hopefully some more new stuff pops up locally, I guess.
Well,
Somebody-
the one thing that I'd say is kind of more fun is that we get more events throughout the year, and not like the year is a slog and there's like one shining pillar of fun. Now we have like the Nintendo Direct, the Sony State of Play, the Once Upon a Time Xbox stuff. Like they show up whenever they want, but it's way nicer to just have that peppered throughout the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess if you're not getting to go there in person, it is. Like, in person, I'd rather just go once and see it all at the same time. But yeah, online, I think that totally makes sense.
I think it makes sense for companies to just like showcase things when they're ready. But it's definitely always fun to just like have a week where you can just like hang out with your friends and talk about, oh, you see this game and this game and all that. And
yeah.
Soon we'll be meeting everyone in like the conference, but in Fortnite. So the conference will be in Fortnite, and we'll just have our characters.
it's true.
The future.
So speaking of that, we got the GameDev Guild thing coming up, and in there we've got we used Gather, thanks to an awesome subscriber recommending it, where you can run around with your character too, and chat like in a virtual expo hall, get to meet people and talk to the sponsors and speakers and other stuff and ask them questions. So if you're interested in that, since E3 is off, maybe register and come join us. We got the student passes open now, which are much cheaper, and lots of cool free bonus stuff. Also, Andrew, I know there's an arcade sale going on. Are any of your assets in that sale? I mean, I don't know that they necessarily fit the arcade style, but I figured I should ask.
That's a really good question. I don't think so, but you know what? My brain, I got COVID at GDC. That was my big swag. That apparently only I got. I don't know anyone else who got it, so I'm the lucky one. I won the prize.
Get well soon.
I've talked to a few people who are sick on the afterwards. Yeah,
were they sick with COVID or just sick?
Unsure yet. I don't think they tested.
We should do that. But I have no idea. I have not been paying attention because my brain is very foggy right now.
Huh. I think they're going to have the spring sale soon. So I think more assets will be on sale potentially.
Oh, that would be nice. Those big sales are always full of awesome stuff and huge discounts. The arcade one had a couple cool things like some particles and a couple of, I have lost track now. And there's a particle pack that I really love, the cartoon effects one, and a couple other very, very arcadey style things, some cool stuff in there. I don't know if there was anything else that I wanted to share before we wrap up. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share, mention, or talk about before we kill the stream?
Well, there was this one thing that we didn't go for yet, but the Unreal presentation had more than just Fab and the UEFN. They also had Senua Sacrifice's main character actress come up and show a new technology for metahumans, metahuman animation, where they literally took a phone and recorded her, and within 3 minutes, like on stage live, they had that face animating through metahuman on any character that you want, which is like huge. You just need a phone now to do face detailed character acting. It's like a gigantic reduction in stress to develop these things, need of tools. Like you don't need the face mask with like all the small dots. It's mind-blowing, really. So that is one thing that's like a game changer as far as I'm concerned, if you're making a humanoid version of a character. And just talking as a developer extrapolation thing here, even if you're not using metahuman directly, and you want to use a stylized character that doesn't use metahuman curves, you can still use the technology and extract the blend shapes that you need, like to another thing. I don't know if the metahuman terms allow this or if there's like restrictions. I assume there's like some reasonable degree of how you can mutate the data if you're still using Unreal or whatever. But I just wanted to bring that up it's a gigantic time saver for high quality animations. It's also like head turning. It's not just like the facial expression. It's also like where you're looking, which is insane. So there was that. There was also the procedural generation thing that David mentioned in chat earlier. So they showed a jungle, and they had like a giant cliff that they just drag and dropped in, and they changed the road curves and like added logs in specific places to complement them, all dynamically. And they also generated like the entire area around like a small demo scene, which I think they said it was like 4x4 kilometers, and they only offered like 200 meters by 200 meters manually. So that's like less than 10% of the scene. Like the entire rest is like populated by procedural generation, and it looks amazing because they have all that amazing rendering tech for like the night lumen and foliage rendering is now a thing since 5.1, but they proved it in 5.2, I believe. And then they also showed their own like material stack improvements. I don't remember the name for it. There was like a catchy name, but it's a really impressive improvement. I want to play with that sometime down the line this year, but I don't know when. Probably once it's a bit more stable. But yeah, it's really impressive.
Yeah, it looks really cool. I've got it up here. This is the jungle. That's pretty.
Yeah. So that's the portion that's manually offered, and they're also showing like meta sounds, and they're showing like all the small details that they offered into this. They also worked with a car company to like have the car simulate entirely accurately with like all the bumps of the wheels and stuff. Yeah, it was like a really impressive demo. I recommend people watch the keynote live. Like you can just watch the highlights, but there's like really impressive stuff in there.
Yeah, it looks very cool. And Sam, on the face stuff, you mentioned in the chat that there's a Unity version of that or something somewhat similar. I assume it's not exactly the same, but
Yeah, it's been out for like a year or two now, I think, where you can use the phone or maybe even the webcam, I'm not sure, to record your face and basically make facial animations pretty easily in Unity. I haven't used it though, so I don't know how good it is.
Do you know if that's the same app that you can use for the face capture for the like the Weta Tools thing?
No, the Weta one is more enterprise. I think they charge. I was talking to the guy. He said is like 1,800 per character.
Yeah,
So, like
yeah.
they can
I
make the
thought
blend
he
shape.
said that there was like a phone app that you use to like actually do the scan, and then you like send that data to them. Though.
Oh, I'm not sure, but maybe. But you have to pay for that one.
Yeah.
This one's just free.
That's cool.
cool. Well, all right. I think ready to wrap it up. I just really briefly wanted to tell everybody to go check out the GameDev Guild site down below. The link's down below. Make sure that you go subscribe to Johnny and Sam's channels. Obviously, play some Terraria and grab some assets from Infinity PBR on the asset store. And hopefully we will see you all again next week. Oh, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share, and whatever the other buttons are you can find down there, the little alert and all that stuff. All right. Thanks again, and see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for 20K.
Thanks.
Yes. Congrats, Johnny.
Congrats.